want to feel respected.
I want to feel secure.
I want to feel understood.
It all started with a new line manager. Things were okay for a while, then things changed. Started criticising my work, how I dealt with the people, how I spoke to people, made me actually frightened to carry out my job how I normally would. Months of this, come home, cried, couldn't sleep overnight, because just the thought of going to work in the morning filled me with dread. I saw a doctor, she upped me happy pills, as I call them. Not sure exactly what happened, but one day the line manager left at midday, never returned. Thankfully, I've been there nearly 11 years now. Confidence gradually returned and people said I look brighter again. That actually happened just a couple of months after she left. People said I look like my old self. Sometimes you just have to battle through it and persevere, speak to family, and know that you've got a good support group around you.
I was about a month into my job, and so my colleagues were like, right, so you need to like go and do your first like careers fair, and I was like, cool. And it was like they hadn't been as aware of how anxious I can get. When you are anxious, you kind of expect the worst and assume the worst and assume that you're going to have to answer all these things you don't know and meet all these kind of high expectations. And I think I just started crying at one point. I guess I wasn't too sure why, but I think it was just like it felt like mounting pressure. And a lot of the time you just feel like you're crying for no reason and you're not really sure what to make sense of. Once I've like done something and I know what to expect, it's a lot easier. But yeah.
My manager was really under pressure as well, so she was really stressed. And she just raised her voice or something, which is quite uncommon to her. So she was basically saying something along the lines of, oh, like you did something and like you really disappointed me or whatever. And I don't know why in that particular moment in time, that combined with everything for the past 2 months, combined with like all the things at home, I was just like, yeah, I need to get away. I need to get away now. The moment you say to your manager that I have mental health issues, or you mentioned that, I've seen a professional and I have mild depression, I have this, I have that, straight away you have a stigma and you have this feeling that you potentially can lose your job, which stresses you even more. Then straight away you think, okay, I might be, for example, making a mistake, and that's going to be written down, oh, that person has mental health issues, they're not capable of doing their role. And then lastly, on top of your already fragile well-being, you're adding extra stress by thinking, oh, if I'm actually going to come clean and I'm going to mention that, I'm going to lose my job.
I remember when I used to work in a restaurant in Mayfair, and I worked as a hostess at the door. So I had to greet customers and seat them. And there was one day when I just felt like somebody was sitting on my chest, or just my whole throat just felt like it was closing up. I struggled to breathe and I just didn't know what was wrong with me. I told my manager, I just feel like I'm going to have a heart attack. I need to go to A&E right now. He did let me go, so as I went, they checked my heart and everything was fine. So they said there's nothing wrong with me, I'm okay, and couldn't tell me though what was wrong with me or why I had these symptoms. So as I talked to my colleagues and friends, one person actually said, this sounds a lot like you have anxiety, which, I didn't know what that was at the time. So I did my research and I looked into it, and turns out that I actually had a panic attack at work. So yeah, that was that.
I'm Alistair Wildblood. I am General Manager at St John's Tavern in North London. We're an independent site. We've been here 22 years and I try and lead the team as best I can. We work in a very high pressure environment, which is based on a lot of communication and often things are very heated in the moment of service because we're such an energetic environment that people gather a lot of stress. There's stress in all workplaces, and people can deal with that in lots of different ways. But it's something that creeps into all work environments, and we have to address it. We address it as best we can through the communication of the team, but I think we could also do more.
So there's a group of us who are mental health first aid trained, and then that group it grew legs almost. And that, so what we wanted to do was, okay, let's not just say, okay, we've got this training, tick a box, and then nobody knows about you, or nobody knows that you're there. So what we then were kind of trying to do was raise awareness so that people were aware that this group of first aiders existed and were in place. And Corn Ferry were very quick to say, yes, let's do this.
Well, the way that we do it at the moment, we have, there are so many different things we have to look at from a legal point of view about like how HR works in the modern world. There are so many legal boundaries that you have to cover your base as an employer and try and do the best you can for the employee. And finding that kind of middle ground where that communication is open is very important.
We actually set up a SharePoint site, mental health first aid SharePoint site, that we now actually call the Wellbeing Network, Wellbeing Committee. And that's because there's first aid, but there's also well-being, your overall well-being. So I could be somebody who, you need to maintain your mental health, but you don't necessarily need to get to a point of crisis and kind of needing help, So it's kind of it's like exercise, right? To avoid, further health issues down the line, So rather than kind of being that final point, almost that escalation when things are kind of at quite a severe point, we worked backwards from that. Okay, how can we help people avoid to getting to that point in the first place?
For us, we have different avenues to find different ways if you're struggling at work, and we try and work with people on one-to-ones to make sure they're doing okay. But we do that for everything. We do that as part of the product knowledge, how you're surviving day to day with your food, how you're getting on with other members of staff. All of that is done through a kind of centralized communication, which we can do well in this industry because we spend so much time together and it's about people. That's why hospitality is such a great environment, because it's about people, it's about the customers and people. And us as a team, we work very closely together. We're not sat at desks and having to bounce back and forth or interview meetings. We're all together, all working together, which in some ways is really beneficial. But then if something gets missed, because you feel like you've done that already, you can miss things.
I definitely think we can continue to do more. We need more people to get trained. That's the first thing on mental health first aid, more people to be trained.
The reality is that we're professionals in a different industry that's so conversational that it almost feels like you're fulfilling some of that role, but you're not qualified to really do it.
I'm currently a mental health first aid instructor. So I have been through the training with Mental Health First Aid England to deliver their 2-day adult mental health training. So as part of that, I also studied in mindfulness as part of my coaching. I think there's some organisations out there that are actually very aware. They've had mental health support in place for a number of years now, and that's growing as their team grows and as the opportunities arise to increase that and to grow the knowledge, they've embraced it. But there's still part of our businesses that still don't really understand mental health. It's not been something that they've had to embrace or wanted to invest in.
So it's not about having one glove fits all. That one glove fits all approach doesn't work. You have to, think of people's culture, have something that works for people from Asian communities, African, Caribbean communities, Irish communities. Every culture is different, so they have different ways of dealing with things. So I think they need to look at a more targeted way of dealing with mental health within their organisation.
Without people, a lot of these businesses can't function. Without good people, they're never going to grow and expand. And if they don't retain their staff, then there's two elements there. There's one, that they're losing a skill set, and two, it's the cost of replacing them. I think if you're a company that are trailing behind on the mental health piece, then you're going to lose people to other companies that are ahead of the game, or at least showing willing and wanting to develop and support in that way. When they join a company, there's going to be that element to look after them as well as what they're delivering back into that business. So from my perspective and the conversations I have, the reason that a lot of the companies are stepping up now and employing people to become a mental health first aider or a mental health champion within the business is not because they see it as something they have to do, because by law we don't have to do it, but it's doing something for their employees and to start promoting well-being within the workplace, so that people start to feel like there's an investment back in them, not just through promotion and training, but actually a level of care and a duty of care to them as an employee.